And good evening. We've got breaking news tonight. Deputies looking for a gunman who shot a teenager several times.
The victim is in critical condition at the hospital. The shooting happened on Oakendale, that's in Northwest Harris County.
Brett Buffington is there live tonight. Brett, what can you tell us?
Hey, Lynn, tonight, that teenager, he is in surgery. Deputies are hoping that when he comes out, he can give them some answers. They have a lot of questions tonight, but what we've learned from them is this happened around 7:30 tonight. That teenager, he was walking down this street when that shooter, also believed to be a teenager to early 20s in age, came out and started shooting. Take a look at this video. Investigators, they are here tonight in this neighborhood trying to sort this out. The scary part is after that shooter opened fire on this teenager, he then ran through a park, part of this community here, and fired at another group of kids and teenagers. What we've learned from the sheriff tonight is that that shooter is described as being a Hispanic male, somewhere in his late teens to early 20s. He was last seen wearing dark shorts, a white shirt, and white tennis shoes. There are witnesses here tonight who saw what happened here. Investigators, they are on this scene. They are talking to those people, trying to get some answers. But tonight, we have no idea, and neither do investigators, why this happened. Again, police here, deputies here in this neighborhood trying to get this community and this victim answers. We're live tonight. Brett Buffington, KHOU 11 News.
Scary stuff out there. Thanks, Brett.